Hey, happy Friday, everybody. Welcome to today's talk with Richard Tejeda, founder of Saved by Nature. I'm Mark Medeiros, Senior Manager of Community Engagement for Peninsula Open Space Trust. We're happy to have you with us today. Before anything else, I'd like to acknowledge the Native peoples whose territories we are joining from. I'm in the South Bay, and for that reason, I'd like to acknowledge the Muwekma Ohlone tribe and the Amamutsun tribal band, whose territories are where I am and closest to me. Wherever you are, please pause to acknowledge the Native people whose land you are on. Remember that in addition to acknowledging these people, we have a responsibility to learn more and support them directly. A little bit about POST now. If you're not familiar with POST, we've protected almost 80,000 acres of open space in San Mateo, Santa Clara, and northern Santa Cruz counties since our founding in 1977. We do this work for the benefit of all people in our region. We're blessed with an incredibly diverse community of people and diverse ecosystem surrounding us that we could all benefit from and enjoy. So we've done this work to protect our clean air and water, our local food, and all the beautiful natural places that we're able to go and recreate. And of course, this is thanks to thousands of people in our community who support us. So we want to say thank you to all of you. And today's presentation is about partnerships and the ecosystem of organizations doing work around conservation, land protection, operating our local parks, and in particular, providing environmental education and opportunities to interact with these natural places. So it's a diverse ecosystem of organizations, starting with our local agency partners like the Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space District, Santa Clara Valley Open Space Authority, county parks, state parks. There's many agencies that operate our parks. Some people may not be aware that there are many other environmental nonprofits that provide different forms of environmental education and opportunities to access the outdoors. And so over the next couple of months, we're going to be highlighting some of the cooler groups in the area that are doing this work of providing outdoor education and other opportunities for people. And we're going to start today by talking with a really cool guy named Richard Tejeda. He's an incredible man, founder and executive director of Saved by Nature. And you'll hear more about Richard's history in his presentation. He grew up under some difficult circumstances in South San Jose, but in his mid-20s found a calling in nature. He'd eventually become an avid fisherman, angler, and champion advocate for steelhead, trout, and Chinook salmon. He became a California State Parks interpreter and is now founder of Saved by Nature, whose mission is to expose, teach, and enlighten people of all backgrounds and abilities through environmental education and working collaboratively to ensure mental, physical, and spiritual healing. He's been offering really cool programming, mainly through a partnership with Santa Clara Valley Open Space Authority, but with other groups as well. So we're going to hear his story and his work now. With that, I'd like to welcome Richard to the stream. Hey, Richard. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing outstanding. It's a beautiful morning. Thank you so much for having me, Mark. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, well, I'm really excited to hear more about your work. I know personally, being an outdoors person, the smoke and being cooped up is real difficult. How are you handling it? I know you're outside like every day in your work.
Well, Mark, nature is just part of my life. It's part of my mental health. And because I haven't been able to get out, it's been a little rough. And so I'm assuming that it's also been rough for others, not being able to get out. So just doing my best. I just got back from the Smith River myself. I went up north, up by Crescent City, up by Oregon. It wasn't enough time, if you ask me. I had to get back because of work, but it was an escape, and I like to get out and escape and reset. Being the executive director and founder of a new nonprofit, it can become very stressful and challenging, and so being able to get away is very important to me. So I just hope everybody's hanging in there during the time of COVID, and now we have the fires. So just doing my best.
Yeah, it's good to be transparent, because that's what everybody's feeling. Like, I'm feeling it, you're feeling it. So hopefully, everybody who's joining today can enjoy your talk and learn a little bit, and we could at least all be in community together. So I'm going to turn it over to you. If you get your presentation ready there, Richard, I'll share your screen in a second. And while Richard's getting ready there, we're going to hear from him. He has a presentation, but then we're going to have time for some questions afterwards. We'd love to hear if you've seen any of Richard's programming actually in comments right now and what you thought. So we'll have time for questions at the end, but now we're going to turn it over to you, Richard, and you're actually ready to go. So I'm going to put it up now.
All right. Well, thank you, Mark. And I know we had discussed about Big Basin Redwood State Park and the fire, and it just so happened when I put together this PowerPoint presentation, which is the first PowerPoint presentation for Saved by Nature ever. This is actually Sempervirent Falls. This was a hike that we did with Latino Outdoors and California State Parks. It was a partnership hike, and we went out to Big Basin Redwood State Park, and we'll learn a little bit why we went out to that specific area. And we did a beautiful hike there out to the falls. It was a family-oriented hike, and so anyways, just a little bit about that picture there. We are about nature for all, so our slogan, if anything, is experience the change, but it's also about environmental education, inclusion, and nature for all. Our mission is a very new mission. Actually, our board of directors just we work together to put it together. But Saved by Nature's mission is to expose, teach, and enlighten people of all backgrounds and abilities through environmental education, working collaboratively with partners to ensure mental, physical, and spiritual healing. We strive to welcome the community organically to the natural wonders and recreational opportunities of the outdoors. And I believe this is a sundog over at Castle Rock State Park, where I had the opportunity to work for a second. And it's overlooking, if you look back there in the picture, that is the Pacific Ocean, and that is the Santa Cruz Mountains. So I'm very excited, also nervous to share with you, the origin of Saved by Nature. I was able to work with a few of my colleagues and put together, the story of how Saved by Nature started. I'm kind of vague when I tell it and things, but today I wanted to share with you a little bit about how Saved by Nature started and why. It's about a 4-minute, read, if anything. And so I want to read this to you is because it's the first time I've ever presented this to the public, and because it's presented in a specific way, okay? So where did Saved by Nature originate? It began in my old neighborhood, intertwined within the adversities of my life. It began when someone like me, who has been through what I have, still makes it and has a heart big enough to help others circumvent the same roadblocks so they can live a wonderful, successful life. I won't tell you my entire story here today, but I will give you a glimpse into what events helped shape me into the person I am now and how nature saved my life. It was my life journey that led me to the creation of Saved by Nature, beginning on the streets of South San Jose. My mother was 16 when she had my brother and 19 when I was born. She met my father, who is from Texas, where I was born, while working in the fields of Gilroy. After I was born, my mother fled Texas from an abusive husband with my brother and I. She didn't have a chance to graduate from high school, so we had very little money. We were on welfare. I remember taking the bus a lot and eating government cheese, if you will. Growing up wasn't easy. I was surrounded by people who sold drugs. My neighbor was a crackhead, and my uncles who lived nearby were meth addicts. I soon fell victim to the streets and would lose many years of my life. Whenever out in nature, however, I felt that I was in a whole new world, a place where I could escape my old neighborhood. What really hit me was the sort of trance I would enter, especially when fishing and hiking along rivers and creeks. Must be the sound of the water that drowns out your negative thoughts. I wasn't thinking of my painful past. I wasn't really thinking of my future either. I was in the moment for once, and for me, that's something that is rare because my mind is always running. I wanted to share this life-changing experience with others, but I didn't know how. I was still finding my way. It wasn't until I was enrolled in the West Valley College Park Management Program that I began thinking about creating an organization that would help people by introducing them to the outdoors. Eventually, I decided I want to be a full-time park interpreter to support my family, and because it felt safer than starting my own nonprofit. While enrolled at West Valley, I landed my first job at Big Basin Redwood State Park as a park aide. I worked at the ranger station, checking in campers and selling wood. It was a wonderful experience with a long 2-hour commute. Wanting to work closer to home, I took a part-time position with the nonprofit Guadalupe River Park Conservancy. I worked for 2 years as an education assistant. Additionally, I was employed by Santa Clara County Parks in park maintenance, cleaning bathrooms and disposing of trash, and with the Open Space Authority as their first seasonal interpreter, leading nature hikes. My goal at this point was to become a park interpreter. To become a more competitive applicant, I enrolled in the Environmental Studies program at San Jose State University. At the same time, I began an internship with Valley Water Education and Outreach Department, where I was promoted and worked for 2 years until my contract was complete. Throughout school and after graduating, I applied for various full-time positions as a park interpreter to local agencies. Each time I was denied, sometimes not even given a second interview. After nearly a decade of searching for an interpreter position, I felt that there were few jobs for male Hispanic park interpreters, especially given that I did not experience any in the field, which made it more discouraging. I realized there were social issues involved and shifted my direction on focusing on creating a place where people of color with 10 years of experience, passion, and 2 environmental degrees had a chance. Growing up in a low-income community, the schools I attended had limited resource. I was a first-generation college student raising a family. I couldn't afford the tuition of a UC, and I only spoke one language because my mother was suppressed for speaking Spanish when growing up. Because of my experience, when Saved by Nature raises enough funds to hire staff, we will use Urbana, a toolkit to mitigate bias in recruitment and hiring. Becoming a full-time interpreter didn't happen for a reason. Each time I was told no, a log was removed and added to the fire that fueled my motivation to start Saved by Nature. Why didn't they hire me? Because I was meant to be the founder and executive director of Saved by Nature. I have an opportunity to leave a legacy behind, and that is something for which I am willing to persevere. Being resilient while facing challenges is nothing I'm new to. I was set up for failure my entire life, yet I have succeeded. I'm going to make sure others have the same opportunity to succeed as well. I'm here to change lives through environmental education and justice, and I'm barely getting started. All right, so thank you for bearing with me. Thank you for listening. So Saved by Nature became a corporation on August 22nd, 2018. Our kickoff event was April 14th, 2019, and we became a nonprofit organization on August 20th, 2019, which is within a year of us becoming a corporation, which we are very lucky for. But also I worked extremely hard to make that possible with the help of the board. And so here's a photo of our founding board members, and our first meeting was held at the Open Space Authority conference room, if you will. So our board of directors, I like to say that we reflect our community. Our president is Terry Rogaway from Open Space Authority. Our vice president is Heidi McFarland from the West Valley College Park Management Program. And then we have others from different places. Andrea Fromm from Green Foothills, and Aniko Millen, who's our treasurer, who just retired from county parks. And so, like I said, it's a small network of organizations, and we've been able to put together an impressive board that is very passionate about providing nature for everybody, including Shay Franco, who's a big advocate for that. We look forward to launching programs such as Brown Girls Hike in the future. And so that's one of the programs that we'll be working on. So one of the things that you asked me, Mark, is why is this so important to me? Well, creating an organization that does not focus on just one ethnicity is extremely hard, extremely challenging, extremely difficult. And so I wanted to create a place for everybody, because working in parks for 10 years, I was able to realize that we do have some areas that we're lacking in, and that's providing opportunity for certain types of groups in the community, which we'll get into. And so that includes being regardless of your age, your gender preference, your physical capability, your rap sheet, and your wealth or ethnicity. When I attended the West Valley College Park Management Program, which I can't say enough for, I studied to be a park ranger, I studied park maintenance, I studied resource management, and I studied park interpretation. And studying all of those things, I realized, hey, the way that I want to change people's life and interact with them, I have nothing against park rangers, nothing against anybody else, but I don't want to give people tickets. I want to make people happy. I want people to remember that they had a really good time in nature, and that's all. Because my saying is that people might not remember one word you said 10 years from now, as far like as the kids or maybe even other adults, but they will remember if they had a good time or not in nature. And so giving people a great experience and connecting people that have barriers directly to nature is something that is very important to me. So the services that we provide, kind of like, we don't just walk that walk, we talk that talk, right? We provide services, we see services in the community that are lacking, and then me, as a passionate motivational person, I put together programs that are going to change people's lives. They're going to make a difference in as far as numbers served and community members served. So we do naturalist-led nature hikes, and those are for the general public, because again, we serve everybody, but they're also for at-promise youth and senior citizens. We do virtual nature experiences for those living with disability. We had been doing those for people living with disability. That's CP, MS, people with neck injuries that are just disabled, people that are in hospital beds at home and are unable to get outdoors. We were providing virtual nature experiences for 1 year, and then COVID happened, and then we opened up, if anything, started providing virtual nature experiences for the entire community, which people were really interested in, and we began to get support for. But just have to put it out there, though, that for 1 year we had been providing virtual nature experiences for those living with disability at no cost and received no donations for that. It wasn't until COVID and we opened it up to the public that people started to support the virtual nature experiences. So regardless of what is happening with us, we're going to provide these services because it's just the right thing to do, and they're free services. We don't charge disabled people for our services. Environmental education, we do environmental education. So for the Boys and Girls Club Summer Science Project, once a month, every year for the entire month, we go into the Boys and Girls Clubs, because I'm alumni of the Boys and Girls Club. And when I was younger, I was 10 years old, I used to go to the Boys and Girls Club, and they took me to Yosemite when I was 10 years old, and I remembered it for the rest of my life. And so when I finally decided to change my life at 25 years old, the first place I went was back to Yosemite to take my family, because that's where the Boys and Girls Club took me. So unfortunately, the Boys and Girls Club is not allowed to go to Yosemite anymore because something happened. And so I created the Boys and Girls Club Summer Science Project in place of them going to Yosemite. And hopefully one day we can get them back to Yosemite. But for now, we go into the different Boys and Girls Clubs. And when I say we, that includes Open Space Authority, Valley Water, the Wildlife Education Rehabilitation Center, and the San Francisco Bay Wildlife Society. We each go in 1 day of the week and we take science to them. This year we did it virtually, and we were able to serve, I think, 120 kids from about 5 different clubs. And so we're really happy about that. And then we also provide outdoor homeschooling for those people that are homeschooled, and we also do K-6 field trips at local parks and preserves. So our naturalist-led nature hikes. Mark, you still there?
Here.
Okay, good.
Yeah, great job. I'm enjoying this.
Okay, naturalist-led nature hikes. So this is really cool because there's, like, I'll tell you a little bit of the stories. I won't get too much into it, but when I was younger, I got into a lot of trouble. And when I say a lot of trouble, I mean a lot of trouble. But right here, you're looking at my PE teacher. And I don't know if he's watching right now, but back then, I remember us not having the best relationship, right? Because I was a knucklehead. And I remember, I ran into him, and he comes to my hikes and stuff, and it just means so much to me. It's like, it means so much, right? So naturalist-led nature hikes. General public, Saved by Nature is well known for our quality thematic hikes. We lead hikes for open space preserves, California state parks and beaches, Santa Clara County parks, and now we're moving into the city of San Jose regional parks so that I can activate the city parks in my old neighborhood. And also a lot of these are post-protected lands. So when we had our, holiday Easter egg hunt, and we brought a lot of people of color, from my old neighborhood and from Gilroy, South County, from these places. That was at Rancho Canada del Oro, which was, a post-protected property. And so it starts with the properties, if you will, and protecting these properties, because without protecting property, we can't bring people to these properties. So it's really awesome to see all of these people at that park and knowing that posts had part in protecting that land so that they can come and enjoy that land. And then we're going to be doing something on September 26th called Hispanic Heritage Celebration with Latino Outdoors and Open Space. And Rancho Canada del Oro will be one of the locations that we stop out to talk about and connect the cultural significance to the Hispanic people. So really cool. Our kickoff event was held on Sunday, April 14th, 2019, and we haven't looked back since. Here's some photos from that day. I'm a big season follower, so Saved by Nature likes to do programs that follows the season. So there's something to see and something to do, right? And answers the question, so what? So here I am. Our first hike was also a simultaneous virtual photo walk. So as the hike was being led, I'm leading a simultaneous virtual walk for those that are at home with disabilities and unable to make the hike. In the background, you see the Santa Cruz Mountains, Loma Prieta. We see the beautiful wildflowers of Coyote Ridge, which is just amazing. If you didn't know, we have beautiful wildflowers on Coyote Ridge, and I hope you can join us. We have an annual wildflower hike there every year. We stop and we have discussion, and here Terry Rogaway, our Open Space Authority president, was given the Founders Gratitude Award for all of the help that she provided during the time of the creation of Saved by Nature, and Heidi McFarland is in the back talking to the kids, if you will. Here's a wonderful picture of some of my nephews and nieces. But as you can see, we started off on the right foot. We have young people, we have old people, we have different people from different ethnicities, and so we're doing our best to bring together everybody. And that's very important to me. And the reason why it's so important to me is because I tell people where I grew up, we were all poor. I grew up with white people. I grew up with Samoan people. I grew up with black people, were my best friends, still are to today. And I grew up with Vietnamese people. I grew up with Hispanic people. And that's why it's important to me, because it doesn't matter what color you are. It really doesn't. So at Promise Youth, I was an at Promise Youth. Back in the day, they used to call me at-risk youth because I was at risk. And there was a bill signed, and we now call our at-risk youth, at-promise youth. Because was I at risk, or did I have a lot of promise? And if you ask me and you look at me today, I had a lot of promise that nobody knew how to tap into, right? So Alive Outside Adventure Series was the name given by Aniko Millen, who was the supervising park ranger from county parks. And this is to take youth, high school age youth from South County, from the Youth Alliance program in Gilroy, and taking them outdoors. And our objectives are to build up their confidence in the outdoors, nurture leadership skills, and ensure that they feel a sense of belonging. If we do receive our grant from Open Space Authority this month, we will be taking these kids backpacking and on 2 hikes before that. So it all depends on the resources that we get, if anything. And so this is a wonderful program and that we created. And I wanted to show you a little bit about this. That's Edward Rooks. He's a wildlife artist that we hire. So we pay him. He comes in to provide a service. They're sitting here at the table after I introduced myself and let them know a little bit about my backstory. I get more into depth about my backstory with these kids because the kids need to hear it, and their staff wants me to tell them my entire story because a lot of them are currently going through it. So I introduced myself, I introduced Edward to them, and they learn how to hike. We take them they learn how to sketch. We take them on a hike. We teach them about the local native people, the plants and the trees. They stop again where Edward, talks to them about the Tafoni. I might have spoke about the Tafoni. If you notice, I'm wearing a uniform. I work for state parks. This is a Saved by Nature program, but because I wanted them to have a positive experience with somebody in a uniform, I decided to wear my state park uniform that day. Edward is introducing them to the geography before they begin to sketch more. And we're about creating life-changing experiences. So if this picture right here doesn't resonate in one of the youth's brain and stick with them for their entire life, I don't know what will. I can take them to Yosemite and hikes and things like that, but this picture right here should be burned in their brain for a long time as a place where I can escape. Look, that Tafoni in the background, it's pretty unforgettable, and then having somebody come, a real artist, and teach you how to sketch, and then you accomplish that, it must make them feel really good, And ultimately, I promised myself I wouldn't get choked up, and I'm not. But the thing is that what you have to understand with these at-promise youth is ultimately they want to be kids. And when you get them together and you give them that opportunity, that's going to happen. And that's what happened. We got to see a gopher snake. Was that a gardener snake? Excuse me. And we got to make it out to the observation deck overlooking the beautiful Santa Cruz Mountains. And here are some of the participants. We hiked on our way back, and eventually we ended. I had my wife was gracious enough to drive up Togo sandwiches after I drove up early, and because the Togo wasn't open yet, and so she got the Togos. She put them in a backpack, and she backpacked the Togos in so that at the end we can have Togo sandwiches. And they got to hang out. I'm there stuffing my face, but again, this is deeper than we think. These are South County at-promise youth having lunch with a park interpreter from California State Parks who is the same ethnicity as them, right? And so to me, it's something that's unique, if you will. And so our virtual nature experiences is something I'm also very passionate about, and that is providing these virtual experiences for those unable to get outdoors. If you can imagine being indoors because of COVID, being indoors because of the fires, we've been indoors since March. Some of these people have been indoors since 1993, So to be able to provide them with a nature hike while they're on a breathing apparatus, I cannot put that in words. Terry Rogaway in 2010 or 2009 trained me how to work with those living with special needs because she has like a master's degrees in that, a master's degree. So while I worked at Guadalupe River Park Conservancy, I bought 50 pairs of waders, and the staff and the parents said, the special needs kids, those that are living with disabilities, the kids with special needs are not going to go in the water, Richard. They don't like taking baths. they're afraid of water, Richard. You're not going to do it. And I said, watch it. Put them in waders, take them in the river. Mom comes up to me and says, that's the first time I've seen my child smile my entire life. Gave me the goosebumps, and I've never stopped working with them since. Because how can a mother tell you that and you not feel a special way or get goosebumps? Or how can a mother say, or see them bending down and putting their hands in the river and looking at the water and being amazed by it? And after the staff just said they will not do it. They will not do it. Well, I'm telling you, you put anybody in a river, they're going to enjoy it. I don't care who you are, right? I don't know, Sasquatch maybe, I don't know. But anyhow, it's a great thing. It's a beautiful thing. And then again, when COVID happened, we began to open this up. But this is an experience. I like bringing Edward in a lot to teach people how to sketch and things. And just so happened Edward's in a couple of these presentations. But here, people, again, were back at home, disabled. And we taught them how to sketch if they were able to. And then we took them on a hike where we ran into some, Native American grinding hole, if anything, and some springtails that Edward's checking out with the magnifying glass, and I'm there recording, giving the people the best experience that I can, giving them beautiful views and stuff while they're at home. And then, we were lucky enough to be highlighted by the NBC Bay Area News about the nature experiences that we did. So we were doing these, and we started to partner with Open Space Authority after COVID hit so that we can reach more people and serve more people. And so, Katie, if you'd like to,
folks, this is spring break for my kids, and they really don't want to learn anything. But we want to stem that as well. Getting outside is often an option. As we take a look at some video, this is a ranger that I went with on a nature walk last week. In fact, I joined about 50 other people. I know that's not according to what we're supposed to do, but it was virtual via Zoom. We joined a little frog, and we joined the hand. Well, that hand belongs to Richard Tejeda, who's a naturalist, and his nonprofit, savedbynature.org, that's what at the top. That's where you go to find out about his nonprofit, and free of charge. Nature walks. He continues with them today, tomorrow, and Thursday. We went out through the nature in Coyote Hills area. We saw deer, we saw birds, we learned about all the wildlife, and we joined in with kids and teachers, so it was a fun learning experience. Guys, as we come back here, I just want to urge folks to remember they can send me what they're doing to bring a little bit of normal to their lives, and that might mean bringing some nature into their lives, some learning, getting out with people without really being with people. We have so many things to do, and I also want to know about people, how they're managing to clean the house, and how they're managing to stay sane with all the family members there. That's just for my family.
Yeah, that's probably a big one for a lot of families right now, trying to stay sane and all of this. All right, thanks, Mike. Well, you know what? One way to kind of ease the tension is maybe step outside, because, Carrie, it has been beautiful out there the last few days. And get some fresh air and just enjoy it.
Yeah, I think I might just sit on the back porch and do that Zoom, that nature walk that Mike was talking about. Maybe I'll feel like I'm actually there. That'll be really cool.
You know what?
Yeah. Well, nice. We like to say we get paid in, what is it, sunshine and rainbows. So after doing virtual nature experience for over a year, it was really nice to be recognized by the news of what we were doing and what we had been doing for a year at that point. And so really excited about that. And so again, me being an alumni, I started going to the Boys and Girls Club. I was one of the first 5 members of the Southside Boys and Girls Club. I started going there when I was 10 years old. And unfortunately, I made bad decisions. And I still remember the day when when the director of the Boys and Girls Club, who I work with very closely now, who's actually the director, told me, Richard, you're going down the wrong road. You're hanging out with the wrong people. You need to stop now, or you're going to pay the consequences. And, being 13 years old at the time, whatever I was, I didn't listen. And so I stopped going to the Boys and Girls Club. And at that point is when my life started to go downhill. But I've always held a special place in my heart for the Boys and Girls Club, knowing that I had the opportunity, I had the chance, and I made the wrong decision, and I admit that. And so being able to go back and give them an opportunity, give them a chance, it means the world to me, right? So again, our summer science project is a great program. There I am in the back, jumping around with the salmon in my hand. And here's Terry Rogaway. And again, we do different themes. And so I was doing, because I still actually work for the, well, not really, for the Monterey-based Salmon and Trout Project. My time is consumed by Saved by Nature, but I did work with the Monterey-based Salmon and Trout Project for many years. And I'm a big advocate for salmon and trout. So on Mondays, I teach them about salmon and trout, introduce myself and introduce the week. And then on Tuesday, if you will, Open Space comes in, teaches them about animals. And then, you know, the San Francisco Wildlife Society, we take them, you know, on a hike. This year was a virtual hike, teach them about the baylands, showing them photos. And then Valley Water comes in and makes watershed maps with them, teaching them about watersheds and the importance of clean water. And then on Fridays, we do a celebration and have a live animal presentation. This year, again, it was all virtual, but last year was our first pilot project successful, and that was in person. This year was virtual, our second year, and then next year will be hopefully in person. So our numbers. So, you know, I'm going to admit it and be the first one to tell you that I'm a passionate maniac that you could not imagine. I am wired a specific way. So I am always go. I'm always planning. It's a good thing, but it also can be a little bit of a curse. But in this situation, it's a great thing. We've only been programming since April of 2019. So over a year, we've been programming, a year and a half now. But within that time, we've had, is that right? Lord, 77 events, naturalist-led guided hikes, 1,148 people, virtual nature experiences, 2,847 people, environmental education, 253 students, and then our event outreach was 2,000. So we're doing a lot more than we're doing a lot more than 95% of the organizations out there. As a small nonprofit organization, we're making a tremendous difference and impact in the community in the short amount of time that we have been functioning. And our numbers show it. So one of the things that, you know, Mark was so, you know, interested in talking about, which is something that is, you know, cutting edge, new, if anything, but not many people know about it. And that is, you know, why cultural competent nature interpretation is important. So next show with Mark is going to be our Ivana group, which I've already spoke about using their hiring packet. But I've been to some of their trainings. I've been through other trainings, and I've been, you know, part of some trainings myself. And so the thing around why cultural competent nature interpretation is important is because we have these words that are in front of us, like, you know, justice and allyship. And when we talk about, you know, inclusion and interpretation, we also have to remember that to include people with disabilities, which a lot of people don't do. Equity, inclusion, and privilege. Now, this unconscious bias thing at the bottom, necessarily I put it there, and that is because I believe in an unconscious bias has a lot to do with justice and allyship and disability and equity, inclusion, and privilege. And your unconscious bias is related to that on how you grew up and how you were treated in each of these different words or situations. So how did you grow up with justice? How did you grow up with allyship? Did you know anybody with disability? Did you have disability? Were you included? Were you excluded? Did you grow up with privilege? Did you not have privilege? Did you grow up with equity? Did you not have equity? And so all of that can be our unconscious bias and how we have an outlook on the world. So my outlook growing up poor and being a victim of social injustice, growing up in my poor neighborhood surrounded by drugs and gangs, and being excluded, not having equity, all of those created who I am and created my biases. But it also created somebody who cares about these things and who is addressing these things. So it's a positive thing, right? At the same time. But But when we look about, and the way that when I did a training for California state parks is when you go down into the roots of this is that there's an issue, and then so we'll talk about this issue, if you will, and then we have to understand that there's narratives out there, people's narratives. So I'm much different as a person who grew up and never got in trouble, who grew up in a nice neighborhood, and had affluent parents, and who was able to go to a UC and just have a lovely, life. Their narrative is much different than my narrative. So as an educator, the way Terry likes to put it is we're interpreting to the interpreters how to treat the public and how to work with the public. So after you, and this isn't something that happens just overnight. This is something that I'm going to be working on for the next 20 years, right? And so connecting to people's narratives, then you can connect to them, and then you can create programming. But first you have to understand what the issue is, okay? Now, this might seem like an issue to you, and it might not. The good news is that we have 88 to 95% of non-Hispanic whites in parks, right? So according to U.S. Forest Service and National Park Service and the Fish and Wildlife Services, there's a deep inequality in the ethnic racial mix of visitors to our public lands, right? And so we see that although 63% of the population is made up by non-Hispanic white, 88 to 95% of them are park visitors. African Americans comprise of only 1 to 1.2% of all visitors, and Hispanics 3.8 and 6.7%. Now this is nationwide, so I decided to do it statewide. So I had the opportunity to be part of interpreting to diverse audiences, where I was the presenter, and I presented my presentation to about 50 park interpreters from Mexico to Oregon, the entire state of California. These interpreters came. And so the first thing I did was I wanted to see if this was right. So I broke up the interpreters into ethnicities. And we had 0 Black, 1 who represented Indigenous, 3 Hispanics, including myself, and the rest were Caucasian white. So we matched exactly with the statistic here statewide. So then me and Mark started talking, and we're saying, well, how does that match up here? And we really don't really know, but we would assume, or I would assume at least, that the percentages would be higher for people of color because we live in the San Francisco Bay Area and we're a little bit more fluent, if anything, as far as, but it's getting worse here because if you go to, Berkeley and Stockton and other places, we're having a lot of people are moving out of the Bay Area, and a lot of those people are people of color, okay? And so anyhow, this is, if you want to call it an issue, you can. The issue is the only word that I had came up with. But again, so this is an imbalance that we're trying to address, right? And so again, so we see that the issue is just it's an imbalance of people going to parks. And when I grew up, I didn't go to parks. We never went camping. I sold candy bars starting at when I was 9 years old. I started selling Mercury News newspapers when I was 10 years old. I started selling stationery door to door when I was 11 years old. And I bought a tent, and I bought a fishing pole with my points. And I never went fishing or camping in my childhood. That fishing pole and that tent just sat there and rotted, disintegrated. And it's just because, as a person of color and coming from a family who didn't have much money, that wasn't our priority, going camping and going fishing. And so I started working at a young age, and that was because we came from a poor family. So issue, learning people's narratives, being able to connect. Once you connect, then you'll be able to provide programming. And one of the things that we teach in this workshop is that if you're not a person of color, that's okay. You can still be an ally. And if you're not a person of color, if your organization is not tapped in, then you need to tap into somebody like Saved by Nature, because we can tap you in to the right organizations. Don't recreate the wheel. That's what I teach people in the trainings, right? So I work with organizations like, Body of Voices and Latino Outdoors, and organizations that we can partner with and benefit. But now Saved by Nature is growing. And now we have our own audience. And so now I tell people, well, if you're looking to connect, to learn about narratives, sponsor a program, partner with us. And we naturally serve those communities because I'm from those communities. And I'm going to continue to launch some extremely amazing programs in the future. I'm just getting started. I'm just warming up. It's just the way it is. So how you can help us is, as a new organization, my biggest worry and concern is finances. There's to launch a new nonprofit from scratch. So I'll just say I've probably been working 16-hour days for 2 years straight. Okay, so it takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of commitment, it takes dedication and passion, and that is what I have. But what we're lacking is the financial support to launch a nonprofit and keep this nonprofit going so that we can continue to do good work and support the community. So what we have currently is we started a membership last month to become a member. And that member, you get two tickets to our fundraising dinner. Because COVID hit, right when we were going to have our fundraiser, we had to cancel it. Then when we were going to plan it again, our poor vice president's house burned down. So we had to back off of that again. So we haven't been able to have a fundraiser since we began because of unfortunate circumstances that are happening. So in the meantime, we ask for people to become a member. They can set up a recurring donation. One of my biggest and most the coolest donation that I have right now, well, actually is the first one, the coolest one ever was a $15 recurring donation. $15. The reason why it's so cool is because the $15 pays for our Zoom, and our Zoom allows us to do virtual programming. So, and then it also allows us to run our board meetings. So this person, Jason Hunt, who has been selfishly donating a merely $15 a month, has made such a big impact in our organization. So some people say, I got to donate $5 a month. It adds up because as a small nonprofit organization, we have a lot of expenses as well, and to pay presenters and things. Anyways, so, and then sponsoring our work, we have a sponsorship for nonprofit organizations and for other organizations so that they can team up with us, because just a program to run, just to have one virtual program costs us about $700. So we ask it for nonprofit organizations or for corporate organizations to sponsor our work so that they pay for the community, because all of our programs are free. And the reason why they're free is because we're serving low-income communities and people with disabilities, and they can't pay if they wanted to. And I don't want to take their money because that's not what it's about. It's about providing a service for the community for free. So to remove the barrier that some, like myself when I was growing up, didn't have. We didn't have money, let alone get there. We would have to take the bus, let alone to pay for an organization. So that's why we ask for people to become a member. That's why we ask for recurring donations. That's why we ask for sponsorship, so that the community doesn't have to pay for our programming. And so our biggest challenge, and why I'm spending so much time on this, is because we're a very new organization, and we are, my biggest worry and my biggest concern is finances. So here it's not just about connecting people to nature, it's about connecting nature to the people. So a lot of people go out and their job is to connect people to nature, and that's great. That's outstanding, and that was my goal in the beginning as well. But now my goal goes a little deeper, and it's a little harder, and that is to connect nature to the people. And that is helping people understand, everybody understand, that we once were part of nature one way or another, whether it be a black people community that were taken out from the rural areas and pushed into ghettos, or whether it be Hispanics that owned ranchos at one time and don't any longer, whatever it may be, lots of ethnicities, Chinese who build the railroad, the Continental Railroad over the Sierra Nevada, the Vietnamese that were here during the time of the Valley of Hearts of Light and giving all the bad crops, but still made it. All of our ethnicities are connected to nature in one way or another, but it's up to educators like myself to dig a little deeper, dig a little bit more into history, say, how was your grandparents connected to nature? How did you get removed from nature? And how can we get you back and connected to nature? Because ultimately that's where we're all from. And just history has removed us from this one way or another. So here is a mural that was put together by my cousin. At one point, he was put into jail for graffitiing San Jose, and now he does it for a living. So he created this Saved by Nature mural for me, and I was told that I should interpret this to you all, that the reason why I do things like this is for the person when I was up in the Sierra Nevada who came up to me and says, I know what your shirt says. He goes, I'm from Los Angeles. I know what your shirt says. And I go, great, that's fantastic. He's like, Saved by Nature. I'm like, yeah, man, that's great, you know? So if you can't read it, it's probably because you didn't grow up around graffiti in a bad neighborhood, you know? And that's a good thing. If you can read it, it's probably because you could connect in some way. But anyhow, I'm fishing, and I'm fishing for those that can relate and those that need to have their lives touched and changed, and it's going to happen, you know, and it's happening right now, and I know it's happening because great organizations like Post are taking the time to highlight us, and we're also hearing good words of encouragement from the public, where people are saying, you know, Mr. Richard's my hero, you know, like that right there, coming from where I come from and where I'm at now. That's what it's all about. We get paid in sunshine and rainbows, right? And so just little words like that means so much to me. So anyhow, that's what that is. Special thanks to Mark Maderos. Thank you so much, you know, for highlighting this organization. And I wanted to throw a little thank you in there for Chris Cruz from West Valley College Park Management, who, when I went up to him and said, Chris, my past isn't so good. I come from a terrible neighborhood. Will I be able to work in parks? He says, you put your head down, son, you work hard, it's going to happen. And so thank you, Chris. Pat Ferraro, San Jose State University, Terra Roadway, Open Space, Elizabeth Hammock from California State Parks, Shelton Johnson, the one and only from National Park Service, and Jose Gonzalez from Latino Outdoors. Thank you for your inspiration, and thank you guys for listening, and thank you for coming today.
Thank you so much, Richard. That's so powerful to hear all that. I don't know if you could see me again. Can you see me?
I can see you. Yeah, let me stop this thing. There we go.
Yeah, so, you know, thank you for sharing so much. You know, I'm reflecting on everything you said. We share a lot of the same passion of you know, living in this area that's so beautiful in all the different communities that we have here and the diversity, and just like realizing that we all have an opportunity to connect, you know, and to share this space together, to lift each other up, you know, and to just create the most beautiful possible place to live together in community. And I know, and I want to thank you for being so transparent and vulnerable, you know, with your own personal story, because I know what you're saying. Like, it takes that for some people to connect. Like there are situations where folks don't see themselves represented, you know, in the traditional narrative about the outdoors, and it's an effort that everybody is putting in right now, is to change that so that we have a truly inclusive, you know, world here, a natural space where people could just see themselves represented, see their stories represented, and you're doing that work so well. And so many comments in chat, just saying, I appreciate you. An amazing interpreter and program manager at OSA, Terry Rogaway, has had a bunch of stuff to say in chat about you. One comment she made was that Richard helped Open Space Authority get our virtual programs going as soon as COVID hit. We never could have gotten going so fast without him and Saved by Nature. He didn't hesitate to help, and I saw that happening from my role at Post. Oh man, like, what do we do? Like, we can't do outdoor programming for people anymore. Like, scramble, try to figure out what we're going to do. So Post started doing these online programs. Open Space Authority just really launched out, into doing programming every week in partnership with you. And I've seen how much people have appreciated that. So, we have a couple of minutes for questions from the audience. If you have a question for Richard, please feel free to type it in there. I think most people are just saying, awesome job, inspiring, thank you. But if you have a question, feel free to throw it in there. I'm going to make one more comment here, and then maybe you could reflect on it. You mentioned Rancho Canada del Oro and that partnership, like Post did a bunch of work in partnership with our donors to protect land. Now Open Space Authority is managing this park. And then this other layer, Saved by Nature, other nonprofits providing programming for people in different relevant ways. So that's back to that early comment about the ecosystem of organizations that are out there that are doing different pieces of this. Yeah. I wanted to just mention Coyote Ridge and Coyote Valley. Like, I see you out there in Coyote Valley a lot. For those who
do you know why? Do you know why, Mark?
Tell me.
Let me tell you.
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't mean to be so blunt all the time, guys. I mean, I've struggled with it a lot. But when I walked out of my house, my uncle next door was a meth addict, and my neighbor next door was a crackhead. I'm sorry, guys, to use that language, man. I mean, and the person across the street sold meth. And I was trying to get my life together. So I didn't have many choices, right? So what I did was I woke up in the morning and I grabbed my fishing pole. And because there was no nature, I had to get in the car. And I drove to Coyote Creek Trail. And I hopped on Coyote Creek Trail and I walked into Coyote Valley, where I would get lost with my fishing pole from sun up to sundown. When the sun came down, and I was ready to go home and eat dinner and take my butt to bed so I didn't get in trouble, I would do so. I would wake up in the morning, I'd grab my fishing pole, and I'd go again. And I did this every single day because some people go to AA, some people go to church, and nature was my escape and nature was my way. And that's what I'm trying to tell people, is that nature saved my life. If it wasn't for nature, I'd be imprisoned or dead, plain and simple. And I'm here to tell you that people can change their life by using nature, and I'm living proof of it. And that's what I'm going to do. And so why I'm so passionate about North Coyote Valley Conservation, or Coyote Valley and Coyote Ridge, is because I grew up in South San Jose, and that was the area that I went to that is to escape, that changed my life, that was the gateway to the Sierra Nevada for me, Coyote Valley. And that's why I'm going to claim that term right now, and I've been saying this, is that Coyote Valley is the valley of hope.
I feel that. Yeah. And, I grew up in the South Bay too. I love when people hear those stories, like the folks who are listening, like a good majority of them, grew up here, or if not, have a long history here, or just moved here and they're connecting right now. And we all, I resonate so strongly with what you just said, and I know other people are too there, and lots of comments about that, folks saying no need to apologize for being real, that kind of thing.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it because it's hard for me.
Yeah. So, we're going to just take one question, and then I have like a closing question and comment for you. Suska, asked, and you have a lot of context for this because I know you worked up in Big Basin and Castle Rock and other places.
Yeah.
So some folks wanted to just get your commentary. Suska asked, I'm wondering what Richard foresees for the future of natural spaces in light of the recent catastrophe of all the fires and stuff. Like, what are you reflecting on,
because the Save the Redwood League grant snuck up on me and I wasn't able to apply. This is where I say I need help.
Yeah.
We were going to take communities of color to Big Basin, Henry Cow, and I can't remember. Oh, Portola Redwoods. The fire hit. I was even more motivated to apply for this grant because now I want to take people in there to teach them about fire ecology.
Mm-hmm.
So where I see things going because of the fires is to education. Fire, when I went to school, a degree from park management, a degree in environmental studies, and when I went to school, fire is actually it's a good thing. It's a good thing. Now we're very sad about Big Basin and losing the historic buildings because those are historic. And then Big Basin was our first national park, our first state park. That park has so much history. December virus flood. It's just we're very sad. We're also sad that some of the forest is burned down. The old growth 2,000-year-old, they made it because they have special adaptations, so that's good stuff. But we're not going to probably be able to take people in for the rest of the year. But coming in 2021, people should really start thinking about highlighting the positives. It's not a negative thing all the time, and it is kind of sad. Don't get me wrong, but right now we should be lifting the community up, lifting up positive energies, and turning it into a positive. I know organizations are going to be doing that, and some are currently already starting to, and some are going to be doing that probably this month. And so I look forward to seeing those cool presentations about the positive things that are going to happen.
That's great. Yeah, and comments coming in. For those who don't know about the history of indigenous Native American use of fire in California, it's a long history. Of course, it's a normal part of our landscape. We have some conditions now that are not natural in terms of the way fire is occurring because of our history of management, but there is a lot of opportunity and positive, and definitely read those articles that are describing that history of fire on our landscape and look for the positive. That's a great message, And so lastly, you've mentioned already the challenges,
Yeah.
and I'm aware because I follow many newer and smaller nonprofits, how difficult it is with there being support for your work, but needing a lot of support and some people not knowing how to support and finding that support. So I think you've already described your largest challenge,
Yeah.
which is funding and some ways for people to support. But I just wanted to encourage everybody who listened today, if you feel like this work is important, you should definitely go check out savebynature.org right now and make a donation that at any level that you can, because it's part of the ecosystem of what needs to happen. Post needs to go out, protect land. We need to support our local agencies by voting, and we need to support Save by Nature and other educational nonprofits so that people can go out and experience these places. So,
yeah.
So any last words, Richard? I want to say thank you again.
No, thank you again, Mark. I mean, you're a wonderful ally, and I want to, make that known that the work that you're doing as an ally is ultimately making a huge impact for others. So thank you. You're a wonderful role model, and I hope others see that, and I hope others, can emulate. Not too much, but.
All right, Richard. Well, good luck with the rest of your work today. I know you probably have like a million things to do, and I hope we
Absolutely. With
Yeah.
a big old smile, because my saying is, you can't do it gracefully. I shouldn't be doing it at all. That's Saved by Nature's model, right? Model too. We have a lot of mottos.
Very good, Richard. Well, thanks for spending time with us, and hope to see you soon.
Thank you, Mark.
All right.
Bye, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. Check
All
us
right.
out.